Tonight on Nightline, how to survive a plane crash with new concerns about safety on the runways and in the air, new tips from the experts on how to get out alive. Most crashes are escapable if you know what it takes. True confessions, bizarre new twists in the scandal of the prominent pastor and the self-described former gay prostitute. The pastor's strange new explanation. And wrapped in the flag, it's not just politicians doing campaign commercials. Can these over-the-top patriotic ads save the American auto industry? It's a sign of the times.
From the global resources of ABC News, with Terry Moran in Washington, Martin Bashir and Cynthia McFadden in New York City, this is Nightline, November 3rd, 2006.
Good evening, I'm Terry Moran. The skies over America and across the world are getting more and more crowded with more frequent flights and new safety worries every week for air travelers. Today, a government study revealed that more than half of U.S. commercial airports don't have an adequate safety margin at the end of a runway. And there were 3 runway mishaps this week alone. But contrary to what a lot of people think, a plane crash does not mean certain doom. Most crashes are actually survivable. And now one expert has spelled out precisely what it takes to get out alive. Here's ABC's Nick Watt.
Thank you very much. 25th seat, just straight down, sir. Hello, can I check your boarding pass? Thank you.
You have a metal tube. You cram it full of people. You put limited exits in it so it's difficult to get out. You then wrap the whole thing with kerosene, fuel, and then you hurl it down a runway at 150 miles an hour. That's intrinsically a dangerous environment.
Take Flight 358 from Paris that touched down in Toronto one stormy afternoon in August last year. 309 people were on board the Air France jet, which overshot the runway, slammed into a ravine and burst into flames. A passenger's nightmare.
Why bother watching this report? Why bother listening to the in-flight safety demonstration? I normally just do the crossword or flip through the in-flight magazine. I mean, surely if the plane crashes, we're all dead, right?
Wrong. All 309 people on board that flight from Paris to Toronto survived. It became known as the Toronto Miracle. But surviving an air crash is not a miracle. In fact, between 1983 and 2000, more than 95% of people involved in plane crashes in the US survived. So is there anything you can do to avoid being part of that fatal 5%? Well, this plane fire on the tarmac of an English airport in 1985 set one man on the path to find out. There was no crash, no fatal impact, but an engine fire killed nearly half the passengers on board.
Why did 55 people die? Why could 55 people not escape?
Professor at Galea has pored over interviews with 2,000 survivors of 105 plane crashes, analysing their behaviour, creating computer simulations of that behaviour, and searching for the keys to survival.
We saw flames. It was just totally orange out the window. We couldn't see where we were going, and people started panicking. Everyone jumped out of their seats.
Lauren, like 50% of airline passengers, was travelling in a group.
If you're travelling in a family group, you should insist that the airline does not separate you through the aircraft. You should be seated together. Why? Well, it's only natural that if you're involved in that sort of situation, you're going to want to reunite the group before you evacuate. Now, if you do that, that's going to cause havoc.
Sit together, but be prepared to split apart in a smoke-filled cabin.
Perhaps you have one adult is responsible for a particular child and the other adult is responsible for the other child. So now you have essentially 2 groups of 2 people. And the groups should be prepared to evacuate through different exits if necessary. And so each child should know, which parent is going to be looking after them in that situation. The mind goes almost into autopilot. And so when you go to release the seatbelt, you're not really thinking about that. And what's your most common experience in undoing a seatbelt? It's in your car. And how do you undo a seatbelt in your car? You press a button.
Of course, on a plane, you lift a latch rather than pushing a button. Even pilots traveling back here as passengers have been known to get that wrong.
Ten years ago, the pilot of this hijacked Ethiopian airliner ran out of fuel and ditched in the Indian Ocean.
About 5 minutes before we crashed, he came on with the first of 2 announcements saying that we were going to have to ditch, to get ready to ditch, and for a water landing, to have everything ready, not to inflate, but have on the life vest.
In the panic, not everyone listened. 123 were killed, many of them drowned, trapped inside the fuselage by their inflated life jackets.
If you've inflated your life jacket before you get out, there's a good chance that you're going to be floating in the water, and if there's a lot of water in the aircraft, it might actually prevent you from reaching the exit.
We have no hydraulic fluid, which means we have no elevator control, almost none, and very little aileron control. I have serious doubts about making the airport.
In July 1989, after catastrophic engine failure, the pilot of United Flight 232 limped to Sioux City Airport, where the plane crash landed.
United 232 heavy, Sioux City.
The family next to me, I believe the mother was killed. One of the people in the seat in front of me was killed. The people in the seat behind me were killed.
112 people were killed, 184 survived.
There is no magic seat on board an aircraft. There is no one seat that is the safest seat on the aircraft.
In some crashes, you'd be better off sitting in the front. In others, you'd be better off in the back. But on average, some seats are safer than others.
What we've found is that the average distance that a survivor will travel in an evacuation is 7 seat rows.
So sit within 7 rows of an exit.
Count how many seat backs you are away from your nearest exit in front of you and your nearest exit behind you. Why count the seats? Because if you're involved in a fire situation with smoke, you won't necessarily be able to see where the exit is. And what we found with our data is that there is a marginal benefit of sitting on the aisle seat as opposed to the window seat, or in fact any other seat.
An aisle seat because from here it's easier to get on your feet and start heading towards an exit than it would be from over here, particularly if there are people sitting in the seats between me and the aisle.
In many cases, business class might not just be more comfortable, but safer as well. Why? Well, because there are fewer people competing to get to the exit.
Once you've survived the impact, fire is the next major cause for concern.
In that English plane fire that inspired Galea's research, 48 of the 55 people who died were killed by smoke as they tried to escape.
Smoke contains toxic gases, it contains narcotic gases and irritant gases, which if you inhale enough of them, you'll die. One of the things you've got to do is be able to get out of there as quickly as possible before the fire can develop. It's no good having to come up with a strategy once the accident has happened. Things happen too rapidly. You need to have thought about it beforehand and take precautions.
Do you carry a smoke hood?
I personally carry a smoke hood whenever I travel.
And one more thing, do as you're told and adopt the brace position.
You're limiting the opportunity for movement of the upper torso, and hence you're limiting the impact speed of your head against an obstacle. So the brace position is designed to reduce your chances of being knocked unconscious during a heavy impact. And you must be conscious, obviously, to evacuate.
So the rumour isn't true. It isn't designed to kiss your behind goodbye. I'm Nick Watt for Nightline in London.
There's some very good advice in that piece, and if you want to check it out in one place, and if you've got your own air incident you'd like to share with us, an incident that might show something about survival on board planes, log on to our website, nightline.abcnews.com. When we come back from the break, this